Thank you, Christy. Awesome. All right. So I think I know most everyone who's on this call on this training, but for those I don't know, I'm Becky DeCruz. I'm the Associate Provost of Graduate Studies and Research. And I'm here with my colleague, Christy Clark, who is also going to help to present some of this information to you. And we are here, we're the resources that you all have for all things graduate assistantships. So with that, we're going to go ahead and get started. And the first slide that we're going to look at is the mission and purpose. And this is sort of the undergirding of graduate assistantships across campus, is why we're here and why we have graduate assistantships. So it definitely helps each and every one of us in the things that we're doing in our offices, but it's also helping our students, our graduate students who are here, learning really good skills that they're going to be able to take with them into their career down the road. And so what we need from the supervisors is to ensure that they are getting that enriching experience. So whether it's they're working with you as a faculty member in research in a lab, they might be assisting as a teaching assistant in a class. The vast majority of our graduate assistants are working in the service area. So they're working on special projects. They're doing things in offices that are very career related for them. And so you'll see this as we present, but we made one change this year. We're not calling them special assistant, or excuse me, graduate assistant GAs anymore. What was
administrative assistant.
Administrative assistant GAs. We changed the term to special projects graduate assistants because it was confusing folks. We don't want our graduate assistants to be answering phones, doing administrative kinds of work in that way, no typing, filing, and that's it. We want them to have a much fuller experience. And when we work with our GAs and we do the training with our GAs, we let them know that the difficult position they're in as a graduate assistant, because they're serving that dual role as both a graduate student and an employee of the university. And so there's some pushes and pulls in there. And so just for transparency purposes to you all, we let them know to work with you, to have conversations with you, to have open dialogue. If they are stressed any given week about their work hours and the amount of work that they're having to do, and they have midterms, or they have a paper, a big paper, or a final. And so we encourage them to speak with you about those kinds of things, to make it a much richer experience for them. So that's kind of the underlying aspect for our graduate assistantships. So we're going to move to the next slide. You probably already all know this, but it's helpful to go over, especially for graduate assistant supervisors who you might be newer to supervising GAs, is what their eligibility is. So if you are out recruiting GAs for positions, or you put the position on our GA jobs board to hire somebody, please know that there are eligibility requirements around students, graduate students who can be GAs. Number one, they have to be admitted as a graduate student, and specifically be admitted as a regular admit, not probationary. There's just a small carve out of students who can be probationary, and we've left that to international students who are still seeking visas and things like that, that may not have gotten that full permission to be here just yet. But the vast majority, they need to be regular admits to a graduate program. So if they are seeking a non-degree program, like a certificate, something that is not itself a degree program, they are ineligible. They cannot be a GA. So as you're talking through that with students who are interested, that would be one question to ask them, and make sure they are in a degree granting program. The nice thing which I think this year is our first full year, we don't have background checks. We don't have to put our students through that, and it speeds up the onboarding process, thankfully. Only for positions of trust do we need background checks. And so right now we don't have any GAs who fit that definition. And so we haven't had to run any GAs through background checks. But of course, if you have any inkling, like we probably should for the position that they're in, please get in contact with Christy or I, and we can talk through that to see if it's somebody that should go through a background check. Students must also verify lawful presence and complete the hiring paperwork before we submit their tuition waiver in to the bursary. So I know Jennifer Griffin's on the call as a GA supervisor, but she's very aware of those graduate assistant waivers that come through, and we have to make sure that they are fully processed or at least have finished their lawful presence and been vetted to that point. And that's crucial at this point in time. We're still working with that list of students who haven't paid just yet. They don't have to be completely fully vetted for onboarding before we submit that, but they have to be at least partway through before the waiver will attach to their account. And the other aspect of eligibility for graduate assistants is that there's a limit. They are no longer eligible after they've been a graduate assistant for 4 years. So 4 years is the absolute limit, even if it's broken up by some time. If you have a student who's been here for 2 years to get a master's degree, and then they go out and work for a while and they come back for another master's degree and work for 2 more years, that's their 4 years, that would be it. They could not get another graduate assistantship. So it's cumulative and not consecutive, if you will, where there would be a break. Marie, can I answer a question?
Yes, in regards to the background check, I just assumed that those were being done because of the work that we do with Title IX. So is that something that we need to kind of determine? Do we need to talk with the student about their background, or how do we handle that?
So it depends on whether that position is going to fit the definition of a position of trust. And we would want to work with HR on that, the position description, like what are they doing, to see if that is a position of trust and would need to go through a background check. I will tell you that even our instructors of record, our GAs who are instructors of record, do not fit the definition of a position of trust, even though they're assigning grades and things like that, and responsible for students in a classroom. That has not risen to the definition of a position of trust, but we can absolutely explore that. I'm hoping Christy is taking a note at the moment, so we can get back in touch with you and explore that a little further. Is that okay, Marie, if we get back in touch with you?
Yes, and then I got to thinking about it. For some of them, like if they're an education program, their actual program will require it, right?
They do. Yeah, they have to
Okay.
have a background check before they go out to the schools. That is still
Okay.
happening, as far as
Okay.
I'm
Thank you.
aware. Uh-huh.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions about eligibility for students to serve as GAs in your recruitment efforts? Okay, we're going to go to the next slide. Oh, I see Amanda has asked a question in the chat as well about housing grads. They are not getting background checks, Amanda. Please know that. We don't have any GAs this year that have gone through background check. It has not been required. HR has informed us, I think it was about a year and a half ago. We only needed background checks for those in positions of trust. So just be aware of that and be extra cautious if you have students who are working in places like housing and what types of work that they're doing. They might need a little extra oversight, if you will. Sheila asks, what is the new title for GAs? I'll show you that on a slide coming up, but it is the Special Projects GAs. Thanks, Kyle. Once a GA becomes a graduate assistant and they're fully onboarded, they have to maintain their eligibility, and we will be watching for this. Christy's going to be running reports, and you as supervisors will be notified if a GA is in jeopardy of losing their eligibility, because that's going to be important to you. If you lose them in December, after grades have posted, for example, you might be in the lurch of not having that person in your office. So you just want to check in with them, have those conversations, make sure things are going well with them in their classes, make sure they're going to classes. If they're in a face-to-face program or attending, just check in every once in a while, because they do have to maintain a 3.0 GPA to be a graduate assistant. And we say that in large part because to graduate from a program, they have to have a 3.0 to graduate. We will give them a 1 semester probationary period. So if this fall is their first semester and they had some acclimation issues, they're thinking, oh, I thought this was going to be so similar to undergrad and the way I studied and so on. And so they were just taken by surprise and they get a couple of C's. Well, let's say they took 6 hours and got 2 C's, that's a 2.0. They'll be on probation as a GA as well as a student. And so if they have a second semester of being on probation, their second semester, they would have to have a 3.0 that semester, not cumulative, but as long as they're working to get their grades back up, we will keep them on as a GA. So that is one requirement. They also have to be enrolled in 6 hours and earn 6 hours of credit each semester. No exceptions to that rule. Christy will be looking, she looks for everyone before she does the appointment form to ensure they're originally registered for 6 credit hours. And what we're implementing starting this semester is that we're going to be checking at midterms to make sure they're still enrolled in 6 at least credit hours. What we found this past semester was that we had 2 students who were not enrolled after the start. They were originally enrolled, and then it turned out that they had dropped and were still working, and one was didn't attend but wasn't working, but was still getting paid. So we'll be monitoring that a little closer. And then we'll be monitoring that they successfully completed those classes at the end of the semester. So where they could get in trouble, and what we talk through with GAs, is that if you enroll in 6 hours and have to withdraw from a class where then you're only enrolled in 3 hours, that's not progress towards your degree. And so that could lead to ineligibility also. In practice, what we do is we have them make up that 3 hours in their next semester. So, if they have given good faith effort, they've been enrolled. I don't want someone to stick with a class to have 6 hours just to keep their GA position and fail a class. Like that's not what we want either. So we would want them to withdraw from a class that they're struggling in. We will just have them make those hours up in the next semester. So that's a caveat, something to be mindful of as a supervisor. They have to successfully complete 6 hours each semester. That's that satisfactory academic progress towards the degree we're looking for in bullet 3 there. Another thing we wanted to mention to you in terms of maintaining eligibility is working the total number of hours that's on their appointment form. Many of the GAs will have 304 hours expected of them. We're calling these GAs tier 2 GAs. We used to refer to those as 19-hour-a-week GAs, but again, that was causing confusion among students and some supervisors, thinking that's all they could work in a week, and then if they were sick, they were under, and then there's no way to get to the 304 hours. It is flexible scheduling. So GAs are exempt employees in this regard. They can work beyond 19 hours in a week. So one week they could work 25 hours if there's extra things you need them to do and they've got the ability, it's not a heavy load that week in their classes. And then they could work 14 hours, say, the next week, based on the schedule that they have, right? So it's flexible. And again, this is your ability to work with them on what works for you in your office and what works best for them as a student. My best recommendation on this to track the total number of hours that GAs are required to work, and we need them to work, they're getting paid to work, in this example, 304 hours. We need you as supervisors to help them track that. Spreadsheets are one really good way to do that. We have encouraged all of the grad assistants to set up a shared drive with you with a spreadsheet where they can put in there all the hours they're working any given day, so that you know what they're working and can have conversations if they're hanging around the office a little too long. You know, if they're staying there another extra few hours each week, and then they're going to get to their 304 hours, say by the end of November, they have to stop working once they get to 304 hours in this scenario. And then you don't have anybody in that last week or two, you know, helping in the office when it could be really busy, depending on the type of work you have them do. Right. So tracking and monitoring that along the way is going to be really helpful. Questions on any of those eligibility requirements?
I did want to jump in real fast. I have an example of the log or a spreadsheet, and I can send that after the meeting when I follow up with everyone, just in case you want an example of one.
That would be really great, Christy. Thank you. Latavius, do you have a question?
I do. How are y'all? So I know that housing is unique in their position, and this is my first time serving as a supervisor for graduate assistants. So when it comes to on-call rotations and things of that nature, how do they report that time? Is it them going out to a call and they report that time as a part of their 19 hours, or how does that look?
It really should be. So it's actual hours worked. So if they're on call, or another good example is in athletics, if they're riding a bus to an event, for example, but they're able to do homework, or they're napping or listening to music, you know, and on call in housing, they're still able to do other things. They're not really doing the work. They would not count that time. So their on call hours are not part of the 19. Or part of the 304, if you will. I know housing is a little different. You pay by weeks. But if they are on call and they are called to an issue has happened, yes, that time would be counted in. Yes. Good question.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions there? Okay, we're going to go to the next slide. So, of course, everyone knows that there are benefits of having GAs, or for the GAs particularly. They do get a tuition waiver, but they still have to pay their fees. And this has come up several times this semester, and really every semester, but more often this semester recently, is that the students are confused. They thought everything was going to be paid. with the tuition waiver. So when you're recruiting and having conversations with GAs in that hiring process, please reinforce the fact that it does come with the tuition waiver, which covers all of their tuition except $38. So they will have to pay for $38 and their fees, but they also then get a stipend, a monthly stipend that will, be paid to them that last business day of each month that they are a GA. So there's the fee schedule, and it will depend. If you have multiple GAs in your area, I'm thinking of Latavia's, who has, he might be a supervisor over multiple GAs. Some might be in face-to-face programs, and some might be in online programs, and they pay different fees. So the online learning fee is $442, but if they're in face-to-face, it's over $800 in fees. And so if you're hearing, well, why am I paying this? It will likely, which is different from their colleagues, it's likely different because of the type of program they're in, the modality of their program. The other thing that GAs have to pay, they're in a mandatory group to pay, is the health insurance, the student health insurance. That will be automatically put on all GAs' accounts, and they will either have to waive it or pay it. So, and Jennifer's here. Jennifer's Jennifer Griffin is our SHIP account guru, and she corrects me from time to time. So please do so here, Jennifer, if I'm saying anything out of turn. But they would have to have, if they've got private insurance that they want to waive hours that is going to be assessed to them, they have to have that by August 1st before they would start. Is that the correct date, Jennifer? She might have to answer a call right now. But that came up with one of our students, and it was an August 1st. They had to have it by August 1st. So just be mindful of that there. Irina is asking a question. If they take 6 hours of face-to-face credits and 3 online, do they still get charged the online fee? They will only be charged the face-to-face fee, because they will have access to the services on campus. They pay a technology fee in that. So it's just the one fee. Great question, because that has come up as a question multiple times. Sefi is asking, could you please clarify the in-person requirement? Do you have to be physically on campus for all 19 hours to count towards the requirement? Sefi, that is what we are told, yes, that GAs cannot be remote. Their work has to be on campus. So we do not have the ability, I do not have the ability to say that graduate assistants can do remote work, even temporarily or what have you. Now, I will say in the past, when we've had, and I'm not wishing this, I'm not putting this out there in the universe, but when we've had hurricanes in the past, and we'd had situations, that was an exception to that. But the rule of thumb is they have to do the work on campus. I hope that answers. If I understood the question correctly, let me know if I didn't, Hasefi. We mentioned this before, that tuition waivers will not be applied to the student accounts until lawful presence is verified and they have signed their appointment form, and that's each semester. So lawful presence is only done upon their initial onboarding, but if you have someone coming in the fall, maybe they're returning, but they're graduating in December, and then you're hiring someone new in January. Again, it's whenever a new appointment form contractual period starts, they will not receive their tuition waiver until that process is at least to that point. And then the tuition waiver applies to 15 credit hours. The tier 2 will get them 15 credit hours of waiver. in the fall and the spring, and 9 credit hours in the summer. Here are the types of GAs. So we talked about special projects. That is the most common form of GAs, type of GAs, and that's a varied type of projects that they could be doing and working in offices across campus. And then we have the teaching assistants, lab assistants, the research assistants, and instructors of record. And based on the type of GA will dictate their stipend amount. So special project GAs and teaching assistants are the same amount. Lab assistants and research assistants are an increased amount of stipend, and the instructors of record are the highest paid stipends. So based on the level of skill needed and required, they are paid that way. Now, what we do is we set the minimum stipend amounts. It could go up from there if, for example, you have a grant and you put in the grant that you want to pay GAs that you pull in as a research assistant. Ansel does this very beautifully. Emily Cantonwine does this beautifully. They write grants and they pay their graduate assistants a higher amount. And that's acceptable. That's a great incentive. That's one way to counteract our really relatively low paying GA positions. So I encourage you to think about writing a grant if that's something that fits with the type of work that you do to hire GAs or to add to the stipend amounts that they are paid. Okay, questions there? Ansel.
Becky, can you hear me?
I do, yes.
Okay. So is this line of thought correct if I said that let's say we are writing a proposal like a federal grant, and I mean there is no line to add request a budget line to for graduate students for these sort of program fees and other fees that are outside the tuition and the stipend. So is it, I mean, it's sort of implied that we will have the stipend amount that's going to cover this. Is that comment right? Am I thinking right?
Right. So when you submit for a grant, you can put in for their stipend, what you're going to pay them. But
Right.
Most grants will not allow grant dollars, federal dollars to cover tuition and fees directly.
Right. So like I'm just going to give my example, like NSF. Yes, there is a tuition fees, tuition, it allows that this is the cost, and then there is a stipend amount that goes into that. But again, there was no line about program fees and the other fees like you brought up, which students do have to pay, meaning
Correct.
that it comes out of their stipend. So the reason I wanted to make this suggestion out there for like for myself or anyone who is planning to apply is to account those fees in the stipend itself when writing the proposal. Is that suggestion right? Becky, what do you think?
I mean, that's one way to look at it. That's one way to think
Okay.
about it.
Okay.
The just for clarity purposes, the fees and the tuition do not come out of the stipend, but students may pay those with their stipends that they earn along the way. But as you're building the budget in your grant, that's one way to consider, well, what should I ask for the stipend amount, which would help the student pay for the fees and the remaining tuition.
Right. Okay,
Yeah.
that makes sense. Thank you. Thanks so much.
You're welcome. Thanks for that. Okay, any other questions there? All right, so the GA supervisor responsibilities. What we do ask is that as you're recruiting for your graduate assistants, that you not promise verbally or in writing a graduate assistant position until you've been allocated a position or positions by your vice president of your division or by your college dean if you are in academic affairs, because it could change from one year to the next, where your vice president or college dean wants to allocate within their divisions and colleges. So make sure you have that before you go out recruiting. But once you've been given the green light to recruit, to hire, we have provided most everyone, and might have to do this again if you're newer to VSU, but I have a template letter of intent that you can give right on the spot as you're speaking to someone in person, or you can email it to them to keep them on the hook. If they're being interviewed at other places for other graduate assistantships and you want to keep them on the hook for VSU, the letter of intent can be really helpful because that will spell out the position they would be hired into. It would spell out what the stipend would be, what they would get paid, the benefits, that kind of thing. While the decision for hiring and the onboarding process takes place. So that would be before you would have an appointment form and they've gone through the whole onboarding process. A letter of intent can be really helpful in that recruitment process. You just have to make sure it's clear to them that the position is contingent on them being accepted into a graduate program on a regular admission basis. Another graduate assistant supervisor responsibility is to attend these trainings. So we do trainings twice a year, and it is mandatory to attend one of these every year. So we'll have another one in the spring. And so we track who's attending, because if you're a GA supervisor and you haven't attended and we run into issues, we have been directed to pull your ability to be a GA supervisor. So I hate having to do that, but we have run into really significant issues along the way. And so that's the point of these trainings, is to make sure that you have the tools that you need and the understanding and information to avoid those pitfalls, so you can continue on as grad assistant supervisors in perpetuity. So if you ever have a question about things that are happening, a question, can a GA do this? Can I ask this of them, etc.? Or their status as a student, it looks like they dropped their classes. What do I do? That's what Christy and I are here for. We can answer any questions. We can help guide you in your role as a supervisor. We do find it very helpful for the graduate assistants to get feedback from you also. So to do a performance review of students, the minimum we ask is that it happens once a year. So at the end of their contractual period, if you've got them for the academic year, fall and spring, and that'll say that on the appointment form. So you all should have copies of the appointment form that the graduate assistant sign and that I sign. So keep that handy. I would save that somewhere, because that's going to have all that pertinent information about when the contractual period, what they're to be paid, how many hours they get paid or need to work, etc. So at the end of that contractual period, please do give them evaluation. That will help them in their career and in their professional development, which is a big part of why they're doing this role. You absolutely can do it more often than that. If you want to do it once a semester or even more often, that would be great feedback for them. They do like to hear whether they're doing a good job or if there are things that they can, work on to make them a better employee and better in their career. This one's very, very important also. You have to, as the supervisors, you all are working very directly with your GAs, you know when they're working and when they're not working. As time approvers, you have to approve the time that they're working in one USG. You'll get notices about when to do that. You might have already seen that for the first month, for August. That should have already happened. So GAs are told very, very clearly by myself, by Christy, by others, they have to report all the hours they actually work. So if they are working 25, 28, 30 hours every single week, they have to report that. And we can't tell them not to. We can't tell them only report 19 because that's what the contract indicates. They have to report the actual hours they work. And if once they get to that 304 or whatever that number is on that appointment form, they have to stop. It is fraud if they have actually worked 30 hours each week in a given month and they're only reporting 19 hours a week. And if you sign off on that, that's fraudulent. We don't want to do that. I don't want you in trouble for that. We don't want to be in trouble for that. So please, that spreadsheet that we talked about earlier to track what they're actually working. So again, if you didn't authorize them to be in the office working 30 hours a week, but they are and they're doing that, that spreadsheet will notify you that that's happening. So that you can have conversations and work that out before you get too far into the semester. And they would have to back off dramatically or have to stop working completely before the end of the time that you really need them to be working. And you can front load them if your busy season is at the early part of the semester, and they can work lighter hours later, or you can backload them and they work lighter hours earlier. That is a conversation between you and your GA to make sure that they can handle that and what that means. You know, what do you mean when you say a heavier load? How many hours is that? So if having those open dialogues about that's going to be very helpful, but they have to report actual hours worked and you have to go in and approve that. Any questions on one USG, on the approval of time, managing that? Sheila's asking, when does the time open up once the approval deadline has passed? Meaning if the deadline is the 25th and they haven't entered the time for the remaining days in the month, when do we go back and enter that and approve that? Christy, are you familiar with the actual date?
Yes, so for this month, it will be tomorrow. And typically at the end of each month, before the next month starts, the timesheet will open back up for your GA to go back in and either, especially since they have to project their hours, if they need to edit it, they can do that, and you can go in and approve those hours. And then also if they did not put in hours for some reason or they're missing some hours, they can go back in and then you can go on ahead and go and approve them.
Do they get notified when it opens back up?
Typically not. Typically, trying to think. Typically, they'll reach out and then we'll let them know, or I'll connect them with payroll. And then they'll let them know when it opens back up or when to look out for it. I just always let them know to reach out, and then I can let them know because sometimes it varies per month, so they can just reach back out, and also just every day keep an eye on one USG.
Yeah, you make a good point, Sheila, about notifying and basically them having to put their hours in before the end of the month. So we do talk through that with the GAs somewhat about projecting through the end of the month. And so you're all aware that they might be projecting and then those hours change by the end of the month. They can go back in and adjust that, and then you do that approval. If for some reason they didn't enter their hours in a given month, you will have to do that the following month. So that, again, that spreadsheet will be very helpful for you for that purpose, that you can use that and plug that in there. But they would not be able to go in after that month is over, say September 1st, to enter hours. You as the supervisor will have to enter them and approve them. And then Hasefi is checking in on the timing. GAs should be entering their hours. Hasefi, they have to enter them monthly. They can enter them every single day that they work. They can enter them once a week or every 2 weeks. It's open for them to do that. But the minimum is once a month in order to get them in for that approval time for you to go ahead and approve. So if you prefer that your GA enters them more often, you can certainly ask them to do that. And then, you know, your responsibility for approving hours, again, is that once a month. But if you go in there more often, that's okay too. If that's, you know, just how that works better for you, that is absolutely not a problem. Yeah, so you don't get behind in approvals. You can absolutely do that, Hasefi. Yeah. Good questions. Good questions. Unless there's other questions about the time approving or how one USG works. Okay, I'm going to go to the next bullet point. So we talked about this with the mission PowerPoint about offering a valuable learning experience to your graduate assistants. We also asked our GAs to do a survey at the end of their experience so we can learn, you know, are they getting a good experience at the graduate level, right? Is this professionally developing them for their career? We want to know that. So we do ask those questions. We're finding out from them how their experience has been going, and we could make adjustments down the road based on that. If we're hearing consistently in a given area that, no, I just, you know, sat around. I didn't have anything really to do. I'm just there to answer the phones. That's not the kind of experience that our graduate assistants should be having. They could be getting much fuller experiences in other areas of campus. So you don't lose the ability of having GAs. That's something else that you want to be mindful of, is make sure that they've got a, you know, very fulfilling work, helps them develop themselves professionally. It's good experience for them in their career development. You might want to ask them, what kind of skills do you want to develop, and find things for them to do if they're not already, you know, fully maxed out capacity wise in the things you already have them do. Then you will need to complete a GA exit form at the conclusion of their work with you. So either when they are graduating or if they resign, every once in a while we'll have GAs who say, you know, I can't manage being a graduate student and my assistantship. I can't do all of that and graduate when I want to graduate. And that's okay. If they decide to resign the position, we do instruct them and encourage them to give you at least a 2-week notice. If they're deciding to resign from a position, to give you time to rehire that position and plan for that. So that could happen at any time. If you decide it's not working out and you proceed with termination of a GA, an exit form is what will notify us and HR to stop paying them and to move them out of that system. Or their contractual period is over and you know they're not returning to VSU. They're taking a job. Maybe they'll finish the degree, maybe, you know, and graduate. Maybe that's deferred down the road. But if you know that they're not going to be finishing with you in that position for whether it's their decision, your decision, or they're graduating, we will need a GA exit form. And this form is on our website. All you have to do is search graduate assistant exit form. It'll pop right up. We have the link here, and I think this will be going out to everyone as well. All this information and more is on the Graduate Assistant Supervisor website. So there is a page on the Graduate Schools website with all this information as well. So feel free to explore that for more. Any questions on responsibilities?
I did want to note, Dr. Wright earlier did make a put a comment there, wasn't in the chat. I wasn't sure if you saw it.
Who did? I'm sorry, I might have missed it.
Oh, Clell.
Oh,
right.
The problem is that GA positions are not solidified until mid-spring, and GAs are being hired beginning in the fall. We can actually begin the onboarding process as soon as you start recruiting. We can be getting all of their I-9s and security questionnaire, all of that going. We don't have to wait until the fall. We prefer to start hiring after we get the summer students particularly, but we can begin the hiring process, the onboarding process, even before summer if you do early recruitment. So if you know that you've been given a position, let's say in March, and you've identified someone, you want to get them locked in before they, leave for the summer, we can absolutely do that. All you have to do is submit that GA onboarding form, which is also on our website. That will notify us and we can start that process. Hopefully that helps, Clell. It's not easy. And we hate to run into the problem of if a GA is not hired in time and then they have to start in September because we do that first of the month start, right? It's either they have to be fully onboarded by August 1st, by September 1st, by October 1st. If they're not hired in the fall by October 1st, we really do need to wait until spring. It's by the time we get them fully processed, doing a November 1st start doesn't make a lot of sense for about 5 weeks in training purposes. So yeah, the earlier the better. We're happy to work with you on that. So we put together a list of things to watch out for that has hung up some other GA supervisors that we want to make sure you don't fall into the same trap. So one of the things that has come up is having a GA work without an appointment form and without an HR confirmation email. That's a no-no. They have to be fully onboarded, which means the student has the appointment form. You will be copied, so you'll know that they have that. And they will get the HR confirmation email, which indicates they've been fully processed, fully onboarded. Christy, do the supervisors, are they copied on the HR confirmation email?
Yes, they are copied. One thing that goes along with this that I'll bring up a little later when we talk about the actual appointment form is that if you are supposed to be the supervisor, but you were not copied on either of those, and it wasn't like you were left off, that means that based on our records, you're not the official supervisor. So you'll want to make sure within your department and division, if you are to have a GA and be listed as the supervisor, which is also the time approver, that you ensure that's taken care of, because we go off of the onboarding form and who the supervisor is listed there. So something just to keep in mind. But yes, the supervisor that we have on record per the onboarding form will be copied on both of those.
Great. So you will know then, all the supervisors will know when they're fully onboarded. They cannot start working until they get that HR confirmation email. So please don't let them work in your office until that point. And that they might get that email well in advance of their first day, which is fine. You know that then they can start on that first day. But if we're running up, a late fall hire and in the appointment form, we're hoping that they can start August 13th, but they haven't received that HR confirmation email yet, they might not be able to start until the 15th if that's when that HR confirmation email has come out. Okay, so they will have to wait until they get that. Another issue that has arisen more than one occasion is individuals, supervisors not submitting that GA onboarding form. We don't know to onboard and then to pay GAs to submit their tuition waiver. We don't know any of that without the onboarding form. We need an onboarding form every academic year. So if someone's starting in the fall, we need it for the academic year hires. Summer is also separate. So if you're going to hire someone in the summer, that's a brand new GA onboarding form. If someone is resigning in the fall and you're going to bring somebody new in the spring, we need an onboarding form for spring. That's usually the only times we need it for spring semester for a January start is if someone has graduated during that academic year. Or sometimes if you're talking about a super section and you have a teaching assistant, those are one semester only positions because we don't know that they're necessarily needed that second semester. But if there are, if our enrollment is great and we're going to do more super sections in the spring, we would need that new GA onboarding form. So again, always look at those appointment forms and see what that contractual period is, because if that student is not under a contractual period with the appointment form, they are not getting paid, they're not receiving the waiver, none of that's happening. So we get calls from the students like, why isn't my waiver applied? Or why didn't I get paid at the end of August? That's usually when we find out the appointment form was never submitted. And then they have been working when they shouldn't have been working. So this is a GA supervisor oversight thing. You have to be on top of this one, okay? Another issue is GAs getting paid while not working or not taking 6 credit hours. So this was one of the issues that we ran into. It's been, the more we look into this, the more often I'm finding this happens. So we are still going to pay a GA even if they are not working. If they have been enrolled, we have gotten the onboarding form. I think there was a training by the system office that said for employees, and they put GAs in this category, which GAs are not in this category, and said if they're not working and submitting time, they won't get paid. That is not true. GAs, because they get paid stipends, will still get paid even if they're not working. So if you have hired a GA, they have not shown up, please let us know that. We need to put it in the system not to pay them. It's much harder to get a student to pay us back for hours for months that they have not actually worked when we find out after the fact. So if there was an onboarding form and an appointment form and an email confirmation, that means they're in the system and they will get paid unless you let us know they haven't worked, they haven't shown up. Same thing with the 6 credit hours. If, like I mentioned, Christy verifies that they're enrolled in 6 when we send out that appointment form, but if they're dropped for non-payment, let's say, which is kind of in the process of what's happening now and through Tuesday, if they're dropped for non-payment, but they keep working, that's a problem. Because they're not enrolled. And this has happened in the past as well, where students are dropped for non-payment, but they keep working. They think they're in classes because they're in an online program and the Blazeview is still open for them. They thought this particular student I'm thinking of was doing his work in Blazeview. Blazeview doesn't shut them out if they're dropped for non-payment. So they might not realize it either. So please check with them that they're still enrolled. And what that means is that they have to be enrolled in Banner, right? It has to show up on their transcript that they're enrolled in these 6 hours. So please be double checking with them on that. Kyle's question, I'm just seeing this now. Will decisions be used in the future for GA hire? I'm not sure. I heard at one point they're hoping to get us to that point, but I'm not sure about that. That's probably way down the road, to be honest. I don't know how far down the road, but that could happen in decisions down the road. We are not in conversations right now about that, though. The fourth bullet, unable to verify hours worked for the GA each semester. This is a supervisor tracking kind of thing, right? Like if you don't know, I don't know if they worked all 304 hours. That's a supervisor issue. So make sure that you know the hours that they worked. You have to be able to verify that they've worked all of the hours that they have been paid to work. So again, your tracking system is going to be key to that. A spreadsheet might be very helpful. It would be very helpful to me. You might have other ways of managing that, but your responsibility is to ensure that they have worked all those hours and to be able to verify that and show that at the end of a semester if there is ever a question. For example, if a student doesn't submit their hours, and you don't have hours to approve. And at the end of the semester, we're going to be asking, did they work these hours? You're going to have to be able to say whether they did or not. Even if it's not in one USG, you're going to have to be able to verify that. And then the last point here, the GA working considerably more or less hours each semester than the GA appointment form lists. So if you get to the end of the semester, and let's say I'm going to stick with my example of 304 hours, and they've only worked 260 hours, that's a problem. So they need to work, and I know it might be difficult to get exactly on 304 hours, maybe, and again, it's a planning thing, but if they had a health issue, a family issue, maybe there's understandable circumstances. It's a problem. It could be a problem in the sense that maybe there's not enough work for them to do. And we would want to have a conversation. Let us know that if there's really not enough work in your area for them. If it was more of a situational thing, we can have a conversation. Please talk with me about them making up hours in the spring semester for academic year appointments, right? They could make that up later. And we can talk about how that could happen. But if you are working them considerably more or any more hours than what's on their appointment form, then we're getting into a violation of federal law. FSLA, Fair Labor Standards Act, is one of the laws that's of issue, and wages law. We can't be working them without paying them. So if they are working well beyond that contractual period, we're going to have to get in touch and talk about how to pay them, how you are going to pay them, find the money to pay them the additional time. So again, the tracking is key for all of that, tracking of those hours. Any questions on these kinds of issues? Okay. Super sections, we talked about this. I mentioned this just briefly a minute ago. This is an academic affairs only. When you have teaching assistants who are helping faculty in managing a super section, taking attendance, whatever that might be, the allocation is by the college. It's not by the graduate school anymore. So you need to talk to your dean if that's some possibility for you. We are not maintaining a minimum enrollment for classes to allow a graduate assistant for those classes. Again, that's a conversation between you and your dean. And they are called teaching assistants. Okay. I'm going to pass this over to Christy to talk about the hiring process.
Yes. So for the hiring process, which we'll go through as fast as safe, For the hiring process, it starts here with the supervisor. So with you ensuring, as we spoke about earlier, ensuring that you have the funding or the allocation from your dean or VP, depending on if you're in a division, college, etc. From there, once you know you have a position, you can post the position on the GA jobs board, or if you have someone in mind, or you advertise it somewhere else, etc. You can go from there. If you are going to post on the GA jobs board, just reach out to me directly and we'll discuss everything that is needed for a job posting. Unlike other positions, especially like our positions, it is not required that a GA position is posted on the jobs board. So just something to keep in mind. And then from there, once a candidate is selected, that is when the GA onboarding form will need to be sent in. Once we receive the GA onboarding form, that is when we will go and we'll reach out to the student. Actually, let me back up. What we'll do before we reach out to the student is I'll typically go in and I will verify that they've been admitted into a graduate program. If they have not, I will reach out to you as the supervisor and let you know. And also from that point until they have been admitted into a graduate program, I'll just make a note when they are fully accepted. Then from there, we'll begin the onboarding process. We don't begin the onboarding process for anyone who has not officially been accepted. And then also we do verify that they've been enrolled in a minimum of 6 credit hours by the time the appointment form is issued. So if you see that they've already been accepted to a grad program, but they haven't been enrolled in 6 credit hours, you can still go on ahead and submit that onboarding form, because we will double check everyone to verify that they've been enrolled in a minimum of 6 credit hours before the appointment form is sent out. So to back up, we get the onboarding form, we verify they've been fully accepted into a graduate program. What happens next is I will send out an email, copy you as the supervisor on that email, and that email highlights or outlines the next steps. So including the I-9 documentation that they need to bring in person. We don't have a remote process that is not available. So something to keep in mind, especially for those that have GAs that are coming from out of town, or especially from across the country, whether it's from California, Maine, Virginia, Wisconsin, wherever, just something to keep in mind. But also letting them know that they need to come in to complete the in-person form or the security questionnaire that they have to complete in person and get notarized. And so I'll reach out to them, keep you on the email conversation so you know when they're coming in to complete that, so it keeps you in the loop of what's going on. From there, once they come in person, complete the I-9 documentation, complete the security questionnaire, we will go in, I'll verify that they're in 6 credit hours. And then from there, I will send out the appointment form. You're copied on that. Once the appointment form is signed, then from there, if for most folks, sometimes you may have someone who is a current student assistant who is going to be transferred over into a graduate assistant position. It's becoming a little more common than when I first started. But if that's the case, then I would reach out to your graduate assistant after hearing from HR. Reach out to your graduate assistant and copy you to keep you in the loop. But typically what happens for new hires, even if they've worked here before. So if you have a student that's worked here before and they're like, do I have to go through everything? Yes, they still need to come in, provide their I-9 documentation, complete the security questionnaire. They have the appointment form. From there, we have the Equifax packet. That is, I will submit them through a process that notifies HR. They get the Equifax packet sent over to them. That's the rest of their onboarding documents, which I do let them know about when they come in. Not only do, just as a heads up to everyone, when they come in to do their I-9 documentation and security questionnaire, I do let them know what the next steps in the process are verbally as well. So that way they're aware of what's coming. And then if any issues come up, I always let them know to keep an eye on their VSU email, and then we will typically we'll copy you all as well, between if I'm sending out something, or something to keep in mind if you have a new GA. If there are any issues with the Equifax, the particular person in HR in the onboarding department, they will send out an email. They will copy you on it as well as myself to let us know, okay, this student still needs to do something, and they'll send it to the student directly. Please be on the lookout for those as well. Anytime we copy you, please, if you're not sure what's going on, please feel free to reach out to me. But please, it typically means we need to get in contact with your GA. So just something to keep in mind. But once everything is done, once they are fully hired in the system, they receive the HR confirmation email. You are copied on that email as well. Like I even tell the our GAs, in that subject line, you're gonna put it's gonna say something along the lines of graduate assistant onboarding confirmation, rehire, something of that sort. Oh, thank you, Sheila. Something of that sort. So once that has come through, you're good to go. And then as what should you call, as I call her Dr. DeCruz, what it says that for once that's come through, then they can begin working. I even let folks know that HR confirmation email lets you know you can begin working per the dates on the appointment form. So if you get it now, but your appointment form says September 1st, like some of you on here have GAs that are starting next week, that's when they start. And then also it's on the flip side of that, if their appointment form says September 1st, but they get the HR confirmation email September 2nd, they can start working on the 2nd. Before I get to the next slide, like I tell everyone, if you are not sure if you've received the copy of the GA appointment form, if you are not sure if you've received an HR confirmation email, if you're not sure where they are in the process, please always reach out to me. I'm more than happy to let you know what's going on. So that way we can avoid some of the issues that we talked about earlier.
Christy, I have a quick question before you go on.
Yes.
Thank you for all that, and I'm sorry if I missed this. I sometimes hire students from out of state or different locations, and I just wondered, is there a routine to when they would need to come to campus for that in-person visit? Is it different for everybody, or is there something I can tell them upfront when I'm hiring them, like, hey, you're going to have to come to campus in this time period? Is that possible?
Yes. And actually some of the slides later on will help answer that. It will provide the timeline to help you give a date of what you can tell them, especially depending on the semester that you're hiring them.
Perfect. Thank you.
No problem. Alrighty, so this is an example of the GA appointment form that we've been talking about. Some of you, if you've been, well, everyone on here should have received a copy of the GA appointment form. If you have not, please reach out to me via email so I can send that to you. It's very, very, very important that you have this, because it has important information about what the GA has agreed to, what we have agreed to, and what you have agreed to. And so please, when you have a moment, which I'm not sure when you have a moment, but when you have a moment, please take the time to read through this. There's a lot of information in here that can help answer some questions you may have, and also questions your graduate assistant may have. As we've mentioned earlier, it's signed in DocuSign by the graduate assistant, also has Dr. DeCruz's signature on it. Also, just as an FYI, at the bottom, there's a square that talks about driving requirements. Please ensure, if your GA is going to be driving, that you take a look at that and then contact Parking and Transportation. If you have any questions, reach out to us. We can see, I can get with Dr. DeCruz, or we can get with HR, whichever department we need to help clarify any questions, to make sure that it's done properly and within compliance. So something to keep in mind as well. Also, the compensation breakdown is on here. The dates that they start and end are on here. Also, just something to keep in mind. If you, within your department, give out offer letters to folks to let them know kind of what they'll be getting paid and things like that, that is fine. However, the appointment form is what's going to be officially recognized by HR, and that they have a GA position. So just let your students know that when you offer them a GA position, until they receive this appointment form and then honestly the HR confirmation email, they are not officially a graduate assistant yet. They will be in the onboarding process. All right, and this to help answer Dr. Picaro's question. For some of you that have been GA supervisors, at least this past year, for each semester that we hire, fall, spring, summer, we will send out these recruitment and hiring timelines to let you all know, one, if there's any changes from this, but two, to give you an idea of when to start planning. When to start planning on when to recruit a GA, when to, for a deadline for postings for the GA jobs board. So if you know you need to hire someone, say for this is for fall. So for this, if you're like, okay, I need to hire someone for the fall semester, these are the dates that you'll need to keep in mind. Typically, for them to come onto campus to get their complete their I-9 security questionnaires, typically that deadline, we push it back a month from the first of when they'll start. So like for fall, it is July 1st for an August 1st start. Skip over here. For spring, which will be coming up next, that would be December 1st for a January 1st start, which I just want to make sure everyone knows, since we campus is closed that second half of December. There is a shorter time period for that to take place. So as the sooner the better, but by the 1st of December, and then for summer by April 1st for a May 1st start. So these are definitely some timelines to keep in mind. Definitely save these, print these. When we'll also be sending these out by email for each time. So like for May 1st, for this upcut for spring, we'll send it out October 1st. And then for summer, we typically send this out around February 1st. Also, just as a heads up, in those emails, we'll typically send the hiring timeline, these deadlines, and also we will send important information regarding any updates with GA positions, just to keep communication between us. And so you know what's going on. So if there are changes, like with like the background check change in those emails, please be sure to look over those in order to just kind of keep up to date on any updates or any changes that we have. And then, let me see. In IT, we have an NDA to be signed. Can that be sent to you all to be part of the onboarding process? I'm just curious. I'm not sure.
I'm answering that one in the chat, Christy.
Oh, while that's being answered, did anyone else have any questions regarding the timeline, appointment form? Before we move on. And something that we want to note, and this is for everyone that's on the call, anyone who's curious, please know, as we've spoken about before, they must have an onboarding form submitted for each term they are hired. So if they're hired for the academic year, they need an onboarding form. All GAs will need an onboarding form for the summer. I see Amanda's question. As we mentioned earlier, for decisions, at this time we are not in decisions. We're still using the GA onboarding form that's listed on the graduate school website, which for each term needs to be submitted. If you had someone for fall, another important reason to keep track of that appointment form, if they've been hired for fall only, please ensure that another onboarding form is submitted for spring, because once that contract is done, or once that contractual period is done, then their position, we don't have, our records show that they are not in a GA position. So just ensure that you go on ahead and submit an onboarding form. when we hit October and you're not sure, please feel free to reach out to me. I can let you know whether or not to go on ahead and get that onboarding form in, or they're good to go. So just something to keep in mind. Also, it's on the grad school website, and just please, 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 if there are 3 things for every GA, doesn't matter if they're new, they're a rehire, or they're a renewal, they have to have an onboarding form submitted for each term that they're hired, a GA appointment form for each term that they're hired, and an HR confirmation email for each term they are hired. So if you take 3 things from my section, please, onboarding form, appointment form, and HR confirmation email. And I will throw it back over to you.
All right, thanks, Christy. So just a brief word about international students. Some of you who might be hiring international students realize the difficulty sometimes that they run into. It does take a little bit longer for the onboarding process for international students, in part because of the visa appointments. We had crazy situation this summer in Ghana, where the Ghana consulate closed for a couple of weeks, right at the time where we had the majority of our students from Ghana who were set up to have their visa appointments to get permission to come to the U.S. and come to VSU, was closed for renovations. So that was a fluke kind of thing, but there have been numerous issues for international students getting visas to come to the US. So it definitely delays things. Sometimes they will ask for a letter of intent because that does help with their visa appointment. So you are permitted to provide that letter of intent that we talked about earlier. Sometimes I'm asked specifically to send from my office all of the parameters of their program, the stipends for GAs and other kind of support sort of letter. But the letter of intent is something certainly that you can provide to them. Once they do arrive, then there's another delay that other students don't have, and that's in obtaining their social security number. And we have to have that as part of the onboarding process because that's how they're going to get paid. In order to get paid, once they're in the US, they have to be here 10 days before they can even apply for their social security number. So that takes time. And please, if you are working with international students, I know Irina's on the call, please have them work with International Programs Office for their I-20s. Typically, our office, the graduate school, does coordinate with CIP to let them know which students are coming here in the first place, but there could be, the additional requirements as a GA that Irina might be able to help them navigate for this purpose. So it's a little more time consuming. So what it typically means is that GAs are not usually here for an August start. We try to get many of them in, most of them in for a September 1st start. And if they are a September 1st start, they can make up the August hours along the way and still get the full stipend and full tuition waiver. If it happens to be after September 1st start and it's going to be an October 1st start, we will have to prorate both their stipend and their waiver. But those are things we can talk about and try to navigate as best as we can. I know it's very difficult for our international students. It's a struggle. Questions on international process? Okay, I'm mindful of the time. I know we're getting close to 5 o'clock. Just a word about the FLSA and the ACA. These are the federal laws that we are bound by. This is pertaining to the hours worked, minimum wage laws, ACA, Affordable Affordable Care Act, in reporting hours, et cetera, is what those stand for. So we have to make sure that students are not working beyond what they're contractually paid for, that they're reporting the hours, we can document that. So this is just a kind of a nod to the laws that we're bound by. And all of that's on their appointment forms. Okay, next slide. if there's any closing of the university or the days off like fall break, for example, coming up, or during Thanksgiving week, or your student, your graduate assistant is sick and they need to take some time off. And we get calls and emails quite often from the GAs about, do I have to make up this time? And our answer is always, you need to talk to your supervisor. What we care about is that they're working in that scenario I've been talking about, that 304 hours, that they have worked what's on their appointment form. They can make it up. Again, it's flex hours, right? They can work heavy one week and lighter another week. If they need to take time off due to an illness, not a problem. They can make that up any other time. So just work with them on that. But again, it's not 19 hours a week. It's not that prescribed. It's flexible. Okay. This comes up from time to time. It hasn't been quite the issue that it was in a year or so ago, but sometimes graduate assistants are asked to do other things outside of their GA position that would entitle them to supplemental pay. And there's a process for that. So I have to be notified. I have to approve it. So, and it has to be approved before they start the work. And I have to verify that the work is outside of the typical work that they would do in their GA regular duties. So some of the things I will ask you if this happens to come up is, how is the hourly load accommodating the GA hours already? Can it be part of that? Basically, why do we need to pay extra? Is it so different from what they're doing as your GA? So you'd need to provide a brief description of their current duties as a GA and how these additional duties are different from that. What is the pay amount? How many hours worked? Again, we have to make sure that parity is there. And then providing support for the additional work that cannot be accomplished during their regular hours. Sheila. Or Sherry, sorry.
I just wanted to make sure that my question was, going back to the previous slide, if a GA has missed some hours, like we have a GA that her paperwork was not, she didn't have everything in, so she has a later start date. And I told her, that she would have to make up some hours. But if she chooses to make those hours up when school is closed, can she do it then?
I would not say when the school is closed, but when classes are out, like she could make up time during fall break when we're here, when she can be supervised, right?
Right. I mean, as long as we're working,
yes.
The students are out, but she can still work.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So
okay.
fall
Just want to make
break,
sure.
those first couple days of Thanksgiving week, those kind of days where she can still be supervised. Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes. Okay.
And she could work 8 hours, one of those days, for example, because that wouldn't interfere with a class. So
okay.
Absolutely. Yeah. Okay. The budget, I just wanted to give you a sense of what this looks like in the allocation process, since it has changed over time. So where we are now in allocating GA funds is that this is going to be reviewed every single year, similarly to how we did it this past year. So what we do, and this is Christy and I, we look at every January, since the last couple of years anyway, this is what we expect going forward. In January, we will look at what you have expended on GAs in every division and in every college so far this fall, and what we project for spring and summer. And if it looks like there's going to be funds not used, and if that is a trend, then we're going to be advocating for a reallocation to places that who tell us, we need more. We are doing this creative thing or strategic thing or what have you, where we know the need is bigger, we can shift allocations around. And we did do that this past year. That has taken place. So more of that will very likely happen. So you want to be sure to use the allocation wisely. We do understand in some situations, for example, biology has a lot of students who are international students who were caught up with that closure of the consulate. And so we understand that. We found ways to make up for that. So that will happen and we understand. But if that's a consistent trend where there's not that kind of explanation, reallocation will happen. We will evaluate strategic use across the board. And then once that is decided, and that's not just us, we take that to the provost, and the provost will have a conversation with cabinet about any kind of reallocation. Once that's all solidified, then those allocation letters go out to all of the VPs and the college deans by March. That's our goal, is to have that to them by March so you can start recruitment efforts at that point in time. Michelle.
Hi, since you're talking about, looking at things as they happen, is there any talk about increasing the stipend for the students at all?
Well, they went up a little bit this year. We were able to, we had an increase in our allocation of $100,000, which was spread across all areas. Folks were not using that. That was our first sort of major change that we made to the allocation. We increased the minimum to force people to basically get those dollars in the hands of our students. And so I advocate for it all the time. Year-end funding is coming up. It's going to be another request that I put in for our year-end funding, is to increase GA stipends. I don't know. There isn't specific talk that that's going to happen. I haven't heard that we're going to get any additional funds. I will again make that request and hope that that happens. Outside of that, I mentioned before, I think you probably heard, grants are a great way to supplement. If your department has additional funds to supplement, that's great. We can add on to it, but our funds are limited at this point in time.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I know that's a great point. We know that the stipends are not a competitive amount, which is another reason why the experience for them is so important, to give them that a great experience for their career. Any other thoughts or comments about the allocation process? Okay, next slide. Because your vice presidents and deans are not in these trainings, they don't typically have GAs themselves as supervisors. Feel free to share this out as needed with your deans or vice presidents. But we will get this information out to you all. We have recorded it. Christy, that was it, right? So any other questions we can answer for you?
Becky, will you send this PowerPoint out?
We absolutely can. Yes. I know it's got those hyperlinks, which are going to be nice to have. Yeah.
We will have, I'll send out the PowerPoints, the link to the website of the PowerPoint slides and the recording. It may take a second. You may not get it until tomorrow. So if someone asks when it's coming, it is coming, but it might not be until tomorrow. But we'll definitely be getting a copy of this recording, PowerPoint slides, and the information.
Wonderful. Thank y'all.
Christy and I will hang on as long as you all have questions, but I know it's after 5 now, so if you need to head out, we thank you so much for all you do as GA supervisors. We appreciate you. It's additional work on your part to mentor our GAs, and it's an important role. So thank you so much.